Hey, YouTube viewers, like and subscribe, please. It's me, Rich Fulcher of Rich Fulcher's TalkBox. And no, I'm not going to show my navel. I'm going to protect that because I have my rights. But what I am going to tell you is our next guest is very exciting. He's not our normal type of guest. He's an economist, or he's a former trader. And he's got a YouTube site called Gary's Economics. It's Gary Stevenson. You're going to really like it. So check it out. There's a lot of cool things to learn. And you know what? I even learned something, and I'm so slow. I've got to start drinking. Kenny, did you even book a guest this week? Because there's nobody here. I don't get it. Who's going to be coming? Gary?
Hey, how's it going?
Gary, how are you?
Nice to meet ya.
Are you the guest?
Today, yeah.
Oh my
Today.
gosh,
Producer
have a
booked me.
seat.
Producer booked me.
Gary of Gary's Economics. Gary Stevenson.
Yeah, that's all right, thank you.
Well done. Look
Thanks.
at you.
Thank you. Barry Ferns of Barry's Economics
Yes.
told me I could trust you. I was very skeptical. But the reason he mentioned it is because I saw your photo in Barry's toilet.
Yeah.
Not in the bowl.
I'm
like,
right next to the
next
toilet.
to the toilet, yeah.
Yeah.
And I came out and said, "Is that Rich Fulcher next to your toilet?" Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah, it's the best place for him." No, but because I was a massive Mike Bush fan.
Really?
Yeah.
And because of that toilet, you wanted to come on the podcast.
Honest, as you probably know, because you've probably been in that toilet, there's like tons of comedians there.
Yes.
Oh, like on the walls, like all like posters, all people who've been performed in the club. Barry's Comedy Club. What's it called? Angel, the Bill Murray, in Angel. And Barry's Economics has a great channel anyway, which is how I know him. But like I spotted you just because like I don't know loads and loads about comedy, but I was so into the first time I saw Mighty Boosh. I think I come home, I was maybe about 15 or 16, and I was been out drinking with my mates. Again, breaking the law. Don't tell anyone.
No, that's okay.
And I came home at like 2 a.m. I think it used to get shown at like Channel 4 at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I put it on, and it was this one with like the mirror world and the monkey got monkey hell. And I was drunk, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? Yeah,
if that guy ever has a podcast,
I'll be straight on it.
Yeah. Gary, you're like the busiest guy in London, aren't you?
Recently, very busy.
Yeah.
Recently, yeah. Busier than I would like to be, yeah.
Because you go on a lot of podcasts, right?
I have done, but actually, I haven't been... When was the last time I went on a podcast? The last time I went on a podcast was in New Zealand 2 months ago.
Oh,
yeah,
what
I'm
were
kind
you
of off
doing?
the press circuit at the moment.
Oh, good.
This is especially for you.
We consider it an honor to be on the show, so thank you for coming.
So, no, I was glad to be here.
Yeah. So what were you doing in New Zealand?
Speaking tour.
Beautiful country.
Australia, New Zealand, yeah.
Did you go in any caves or anything?
You know, I did go in the cave, a glowworm cave.
I knew it. That's what I did.
Yeah,
you shoot the gun and the glowworms go off?
I didn't shoot any guns.
I shouldn't have brought a gun in the cave.
Yeah.
No, but I heard a loud noise makes the glow glowier.
No, they were just I didn't. Well, yeah, no guns in mine.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Damn it. That's the American in me coming out.
Yeah. Well, somebody has to bring a gun, I guess.
I went to this nice restaurant. Oh, did you let off a gun? No. So you are back. And, okay, I am very basic about economics, okay? So I think I speak for a lot of the audience members when I ask fairly basic questions. Do you mind?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
First of all, I'm just curious, when you get up in the morning,
Yeah.
like I'm always curious about this, is what is people's news sources? Like I usually like to read the sports, ESPN, and then a news source, I try to vary it, like CNN or something.
Yeah.
But is there anything you look to every morning?
So I will basically open like a little like trading gambling app on my phone, which I use to sort of trade markets. And that's like, That goes back. So obviously, I used to be a trader. I was a trader from 08 till 14.
Not a traitor.
No, not a trader.
No.
Although some say now.
You would be great on that show, though.
No, I'm such a terrible liar. I'm a terrible liar.
Well, then maybe you'd be faithful.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I would hope. Yeah, then I would probably do well.
Please get Gary on the show. I have a lot of sway.
Okay, I look forward to that. But yeah, I check the markets. I check the markets every day, and that's like...
So of your own special, you've got a specialized...
So I've got like a load of bets on. So I'll open that and I'll see if I've made or lost money, and then I'll just look at what's happened to stock prices, gold price, interest rates. Those are the big things that I look at, really.
The major indicators.
Yeah, and it's only really if they've moved, then I'll like check whatever, check the Guardian, what's happened, and then I wake up, I go to the gym, I come back, then I make my breakfast, and when I'm making breakfast, I'll tend to alternate between. What I genuinely do is...
Wait, you don't have breakfast right away?
No, after gym.
Oh.
How do you think I maintain?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to work out on an empty stomach?
It's better to work out before than after food, no?
That's my problem.
That's what you've been doing wrong.
I'm eating while I'm on the treadmill.
But then I cook breakfast, porridge, every day, and then when I'm cooking, I have TV on, and either BBC News or Sky News, which are the two like free news channels, and I'll watch one until they do a story about the royal family, and then I'll turn over. Oh. So I'm constantly alternating between these two channels, basically. Or just any like really soft story that's not the economy, basically. But because I want to, like the whole thing that I'm trying to do is I really want to communicate to just like regular people. So I want to be seeing what
like
they're...
me.
Yeah, exactly, like you, totally normal people like you, Rich. And but what's weird is obviously fewer and fewer people are actually watching now.
What do you mean?
Are watching like the mainstream TV news.
Of
More and more
course.
people are actually going online.
This is a problem I have with my kids. Not a problem, but they're growing up and they have no idea what live TV is like.
Yeah.
Because I always gravitate toward... So we were in a hotel once, and they couldn't understand, what? You have to watch this because it's on? You have no choice?
Yeah.
And then they started playing with the controls, and they loved it. But now they're back to their old ways.
Watching YouTube stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've got to be honest, I think it's gotten... I don't want to sort of get myself blacklisted, but it's gotten so bad. The news is so bad often.
In what way? In what way is it bad?
They cover a lot. I mean, I know they have to do soft stories. They do a lot of soft stories, and that's fine. But then, like, when they actually do have... But
they want to scare you, don't they?
I think really, more than what it is. It's quite funny for me because in some senses I've seen behind the scenes of the news, right? Yeah. Because, like, I get invited to go on the news. And, like, when I first started... Like, I would get invited specifically to talk about things I really knew about. Yeah. Like, you know, the economy and interest rates. And I started in COVID and this kind of stuff.
And you were an expert on COVID?
Well, not the disease, but like, I would say I was on top very quickly of the economic consequences. Mm-hmm. And I did like, you know, I had made a lot of predictions which turned out to be right. I think I did pretty well on it. But then I started to get called on to talk about interest rates, inflation, this kind of stuff that I know a lot about. And then they start to like you, and then they call you up and they're like, oh, can you come and talk about this thing? And I'll say, like...
Because you're on their rotation.
Yeah. And then I'll say, oh, but I don't actually know much about that thing.
We got a bear that escaped from the zoo.
And then they'll say, oh, it's all right, don't worry, you'll be fine. And you'll be like, what? But then obviously, the thing is, these news stations are running 24/7. This is the thing you don't realise, right? And then, which means that kind of obviously it's rubbish, right? Because something happens, they need to drum up somebody really quickly, like find an expert, not only an expert, but who's willing to go on unpaid and talk on the news about it. So like they end up basically like
they have to have content.
But then they obviously gravitate towards people who are just good at like just chatting shit. And then the next, once you get good, then you get promoted to like the news review. Do you know what a news review is?
Yes.
The news review. So then like, this is years ago when nobody knew who I was. It's like, okay, we're going to invite you on the news review. And it was with like Jeremy Kyle or something like that, you know. So it's like quite a big name in UK news. And I was like, okay, that's it. And then the way it works is, right, it's at like 7 in the morning or something early, right, or 8 in the morning.
Too early.
And they send you at like 5:30 a.m. or 6 a.m.
Hair
like
and makeup.
10 stories. Here's 10 stories we're going to cover. And then you know, obviously, if I'm lucky, there'll be one or maybe two economic stories.
Yeah.
And there will be like 8 stories about fucking Prince Harry and Love Island, which I don't know. And things about things that I don't know anything about. You know, about
Love
Russia
Island.
and Ukraine and then but you can't go on. And then they're like, so what do you think about Russia and Ukraine? And it's just like not my area. It's not my expertise. But you're not allowed to say, I don't know much about that.
And then they'll ask somebody else about the economics, and they don't know anything.
But see, that's
about
like if you think about the way they make the news, you realise like it naturally gravitates towards non-experts chatting shit and pretending they understand about it. Because there's no other way, when you consider that they're not paying most of these guests, like there's no other way to make something that seems professional. So what you want is professional sounding, professional looking people. Just to sort of...
Right.
So I did the news reviews twice, and then I said I'm not doing it anymore because I thought it kind of undermined like my credibility as a legitimate expert on the things that I am an expert on.
Yeah.
If I start talking about Prince Harry as if I'm an expert on Prince Harry, right? Which I'm not, obviously.
Unless you know how much he spends every day.
Oh, probably a lot. Probably a lot. I've seen how good his hair is.
Yeah,
that's not cheap.
Well, you know, Ted Turner just died recently.
Is that the... Who's
the
that?
guy
Playboy?
who owns CNN?
Okay, I've been mistaken.
Now, and everybody was saying he was a maverick because before it used to be a half hour of news.
Yeah.
And then with the war, he brought like 24-hour news cycles, which was good in a way because we were getting all the information about the war. But the problem was now... You've got to fill up that 24 hours.
Yeah, you've got to fill this time. Yeah, and it is. I don't want to... And it's not the fault of the people on it, but, like, it is kind of dross. And it's so, like, it's interesting for me because I was a trader, right? And, like, when you're, like a big trader at the top investment bank, right, the people who are giving you advice are getting paid, like, $5,000 to give you that advice. You know what I mean? So, like, when you're, like, a big trader at a big investment bank, like, you can kind of get... Not anyone, but you can get like a legitimate expert on the phone at pretty short notice on anything, right? So you're used to like being on the phone and like...
What do you mean? Like you want to invest in coal? It's like, get me a coal expert.
I mean, I wasn't a coal trader, but like, you know, something happens. You know, if anything big happens, very, very quickly, like the traders will get a lot of expert advice. And of course, like some of these experts are actually idiots, you know, whatever. But like, you're getting proper, highly paid expert advice on anything. And, you know, if I turn around to my boss, like, look, I need someone who's an expert on this, you know, it might take a couple of days, but we'll get an expert on that. And then, like, you compare that to what you're seeing on the news, and it's just like a bunch of guys calling someone whose number they happen to have, like, oh, can you talk about this thing? For, like, they'll pay, like, literally, they pay you, like, £40. That's what they pay you, right? And it's like, you know what I mean?
It's the basic standard fee, right?
Yeah, and I remember once once they messaged me, like, oh, can you come and talk about this thing? And I was like, oh, I don't know much about that thing. And they were like, oh, it'll be fine. We'll pay you £40. And I was like, do you think that's going to make the difference? Like, yeah, okay, I'll agree to come and chat shit on TV about something I don't know anything about. For £40, I'll do it.
But say it's like, you know, they're rescuing those, you know, those cave divers.
Yeah.
Right? So they want to get a cave diving expert. I would think that cave diving expert would want to go on the TV because he's probably not.
Yes, something like this, maybe you can. But then there's also the question of, do they know how to access a cave diving expert?
No.
That's the thing. But when it comes to economics things... That was quite good. Yeah. But like, a good example is when I was working at Citibank, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I was a very good trader at Citibank.
Downtown.
I made a lot of money and I got paid a lot of money.
But you didn't wear this.
No, I didn't.
No.
Not at the time. But like, obviously, sometimes, like, press will call up Citibank and I was trading European interest rates and they were, what's going to happen to European interest rates? Do you think they put you on the phone to me? Like,
No.
Obviously not. They put you on the phone to somebody who's getting paid literally maybe like 3% of what I'm getting paid. Who's that person who's never met me, and they talk to me. So it's really, I think once you've been a trader, you realise, like, basically, like, you kind of get what you pay for, right? And, like, all of the best information. Like, when I'm trading for Citibank, I'm literally not legally allowed to give my advice to the public realm. Right? That's why Citibank's paying me that money, basically.
So you're saying don't watch TV if you want the latest information.
Watch me, don't watch TV.
Okay. Watch me, don't watch TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Or me, yeah.
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 Okay. If we learn anything today, that's good. Sorry to interrupt, but you know we're an independent podcast, so sometimes we need to rely on your support. And one of the ways to do that is through Patreon. That's right. You can receive exclusive episodes. You can see them early. You can get your names on the credits. Yeah, as you'll notice, and many other things that we haven't even thought of. So if you want to do that, please get on my profile, and we'll get right back to the episode now, okay? That's it. So here's a basic question, because I listen to a lot of U.S. news too. I just keep my hand in it. Yeah. Everybody's talking about price rises.
Okay.
All the prices are going up.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very dumb question, but I'm going to lay it on you. So everyone talks about, in the 1950s, houses were $1,000.
Yeah.
And then prices are going up. Everybody goes, when are the prices going to go down?
Yeah.
But the prices never go down to that $1,000.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it that prices there? It seems to be there's a floor to how low prices can go down.
Yeah. So this is something that I've thought about a lot. I think the first thing you need to understand, if you want to understand why houses are expensive relative to wages. So what matters is like the house price to wage ratio. Obviously, like prices are going up all the time. That's inflation. But also relative prices are changing. Yeah. So like wages are going up, house prices are going up. But over the last 10, 20, 50 years, like houses have gone up way more than wages.
Yeah.
Okay? That ratio has changed. I think if you want to understand that, it's important to recognize that it's not just house prices that have gone up, but basically all asset prices.
Everything.
Yeah. Well, specifically assets, like long-term assets, like land, like stocks and shares.
Gold.
Gold price has gone absolutely crazy. Yeah, all of these things. Anything that is like a long-term investment asset.
Sorry, that's why one of the reasons they got trapped in the caves.
Well, they were looking for gold. Yeah, okay, well, that's one of the consequences.
Yeah.
But I think that it's impossible really to think about the crisis of housing affordability without recognizing, one, that it's totally international. Because I think you often get people, like you get people here in London that will be like, oh, it's because of Sadiq Khan, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is like the mayor of this city. Yeah. And you get the same thing, I'm sure, in New York or San Francisco or, or Tokyo. Or I'm sure you get it in like Mumbai. Or I'm sure you get it in Melbourne and Sydney and, Vancouver. Basically, every big city in the world is like, they think it's because of our local mayor, right? First, it's international. And secondly, it is not restricted just to houses. It is all assets. So it's clearly a crisis of asset prices in general. And if you ask me, the reason for that is not that complicated, which is we have a crisis of wealth inequality. So in the 80s, we slashed taxes on the very rich, right? Yeah. And that, before the 80s, we had very high tax on the very rich. And what that means is...
Some of it was high as 50%.
Some of it was high as 95%. Shit. You remember the Taxman by the Beatles?
Yeah.
It's 1 for you, 19 for me. That was about the tax rate at the time. So the Beatles were being charged 95% income tax.
He was told not to write that song. It's like, who's going to be interested in taxes?
Yeah.
I have a feeling they could have written anything and it would have been a hit.
And they opened the album with that. Yeah. But, so we had these very high tax rates. And so this, okay, I'll go through it step by step. Right. The first thing to recognize is when you are very rich, you generate an enormous amount of passive income.
Not me.
Okay, right, we'll go through it, right? So I did the numbers today, actually, and it was if you have a wealth of £1 billion, so if you are the poorest billionaire in the world, and you make...
Just at $1 billion.
Yeah, 1 billion. You make 5% a year on that, which is a low rate for a billionaire. They're normally making like 10%. You're making, I did the numbers today, it was something like £173,000 a day, passive income. That's how much you make if you're a billionaire. Now, if you were making £173,000 a day, how much would you spend a day?
I'd spend maybe 120.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay, what would you buy?
I'd buy groceries.
Okay, so say you're spending £120,000 a day on groceries. You've still got, £60,000 a day left over, right? And some of these billionaires might spend even less than £120,000 a day and have more left over, right? So we're talking about these guys, and obviously, Elon Musk is worth 400 times that. So he's making $400 million dollars a week, right? So before the 80s, first of all, we didn't have so many massive billionaires, but also they're paying these 95% tax rates. So it means that they can't generate these enormous incomes. As soon as you slash the tax rates, these guys start to generate these enormous untaxed incomes. And billionaires pay much lower rates of tax than anybody else.
Because you can't tax, when they say wealth tax, you don't tax their income.
Well, so they manage to like use basically accounting tricks such that their income is often close to zero. So Jeff Bezos famously managed to claim like benefits for his kids because his income was so low, whilst being the richest man in the world, because he'd managed to define from a tax perspective his income as zero.
It's
right?
called creative accounting.
Yeah, this kind of thing. So basically, these guys have these enormous incomes. Once the tax gets dropped, they have, because their incomes are so large, they cannot spend realistically even like 1% of their income. You know, Jeff Bezos is making $300 million a week, right? Like he can't spend even 1% of the income. So the only thing you can do is aggressively buy assets.
Houses.
Yeah, houses.
Sports teams.
Yeah, sports teams, land, property. But really, they tend to buy corporations, and the corporations buy the things. So, you might have heard of these big American corporations, BlackRock and Blackstone.
Yes.
These big corporations that just buy up all the houses, you know what I mean?
Anything with the word black in it.
Perhaps, yeah. Basically, once you have an untaxed billionaire class, I think it's just really obvious that very, very quickly assets will become incredibly expensive because they are just going to be buying and buying and buying and buying assets incredibly quickly.
So what do we do? Because I think they're debating this all over now.
Yeah.
Because you can't tax capital gains because they just won't sell their investments.
Exactly. Yeah. Good knowledge. Yeah.
See?
Yeah, didn't it? That's a good level of. That's exactly correct. Yeah. That's the thing. They're talking about raising capital gains tax, which I'm not against. But the problem with that is you pay it when you sell.
You're not going to.
If you're making $1 million a week passive income, how often do you need to sell an asset?
You don't.
Yeah, exactly. So you can put the rate or whatever you want. They're not going to have to pay it because they never sell.
Because I read some statistic in the U.S. Because when money comes to the people, and it triggers the economy because people are spending. Like one of the quickest ways to do that is to increase unemployment.
Yeah. Benefits.
Because people are going to take that money and immediately spend it in the economy. Yeah. Whereas a wealthy person, they're just going to tuck it away.
But they don't tuck it away. What they do is they buy assets. They buy assets. That is the thing. And I'm not like crazy wealthy, but if you were to give me £100,000, I would literally buy £100,000 of assets. Like immediately.
Right away.
Yeah, because I don't, I don't need the money. I don't need to increase my spending. You know what I mean? And most rich people are like that. If you give them money, they're going to buy assets. Like it doesn't really affect their spending. So I think, and I think people think I'm a lot more ideological than I am. This was really my basic realization, which is if you allow there to be an untaxed billionaire class, just because of the incredible power of compound interest, that they will very, very quickly own everything. It's just that they have no other choice, basically. It's like you're playing Monopoly, If you come into Monopoly and one guy already owns all the properties on the board, your money is going to disappear pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, you cannot have members of society that are generating,
but it's
500 million pounds a year passive income and not being taxed. Like if you do that, they will buy everything. And what that means is ordinary people aren't able to buy houses. And I think it gets confused a little bit because the way that they often don't buy the houses directly. They either buy through corporations or they are ultimately the lenders of the mortgages. So they lend a load of money for the mortgages, push the house price up, and then the only way to buy a house is to borrow, $1 million. So it's tricky as well because, we don't, it's easy to hate landlords because we see the landlord, we pay money to the landlord. But who's lending the money to the landlord? You know what I mean? We don't see that behind the scenes. So, I think it's as simple as that, basically. If you don't tax the billionaire class, you simply have to accept that they will very quickly own everything, which means, obviously, like your kids will own nothing, including a house.
And it's just exponential how it's growing.
It's only going to accelerate. In the absence of action, it goes that way very, very quickly. And then, of course, what happens is you lose your middle class.
Tax the wealthy.
Well, this is the thing. You lose your middle class, and then government is forced to step in to support the poor. And how do they support the poor? By borrowing from the super rich.
Yeah.
So then the government becomes in debt to the super rich, and it's just really, they're just like black holes. These guys, because of compound interest, because of exponential growth, they will own everything. And but this is nothing new. I don't know if you're like a fan of history, but if you look back at like medieval Europe, it starts. You go back to the beginning, 2,000 years ago, it's lots and lots of little states.
Feudal.
Yeah, lots of little, England is like 7 kingdoms or whatever, all these little different, and then over time, the biggest and the strongest, they grow because they're bigger and stronger than the surrounding. And then you end up with,
until somebody does something about it, which
well, I mean, it ends up with the fucking World War I, really. It's what it is. But, basically, and I think this is like kind of obviously true, if you don't have anything in your system which transfers wealth and power from the rich and the powerful to the weak, then the rich and powerful will be able to use their advantages of wealth and power to dispossess the less rich and powerful.
This is the thing that gets me as well, is a politician will be wealthy, and a lot of people will go, they're wealthy.
Yeah.
For one, they won't be interested in the minutia of campaign spending. They'll spend it all themselves.
Yeah.
Especially in the U.S.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and they know their shit. Like Trump, everybody thought, he's a businessman.
Yeah.
When in fact, I read some statistic that if he had just stuck his money in a bank,
he
would have made so much more money than he has now.
Probably until he became president. I think.
Yes.
I think that's the thing which has really made him money, especially some of the things he did with crypto.
Yeah.
But he's made so much money from being president through basically kind of swindling the public.
Which there used to be laws against that.
But listen, you can rely on your laws all you like, but laws depend on a distribution of power.
Yeah.
If you allow power to concentrate, then these guys who are super, super rich, I mean, they can buy their way into being president.
But the super rich also have lobbying power. Like if they want to see an MP tomorrow,
they probably
can get in there.
Yeah.
Whereas Joe Schmo down the block who can't afford a house, how is he going to get to see an MP?
Well, I mean, this is in a sense, this is the question which I'm asking myself every day, right? Which is, if we step back and we look at this situation, what you have is like a super rich class that are rapidly accumulating wealth and power and assets. And every day that goes by, they get richer and richer and richer. And you step back and you look at that, you'll be like, fuck, this is only going to go one way. And we're going to lose, right? So then you have to ask yourself, okay, what power do we have? What power do we have to balance that system? And really, if I'm totally honest, I think the only power we really have...
Steal their money.
Well, I mean, it's tax. It's tax, Yeah, I mean, some people on the internet will call that stealing their money. But, this is a war. This is a war, This is a war for assets. You know what I mean?
But a lot of people don't think of it as a war.
No, but I mean, if you think about it, what does Putin want? He wants the assets of the West. And what does Bezos want? He wants the assets of the West. And what does Musk want? He wants the assets of the West.
Some people say, I don't know if this is true, Putin is the richest man in the world.
Well, I mean, depending on how you measure it, I think, but I mean, if he controls effectively the state.
Yeah,
so,
we don't know how
arguably,
many assets he controls.
Oh, yeah, But I mean, I think effectively Putin he's like an old-fashioned emperor, right? He controls the state, he controls the army.
Also, I think, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right.
I think people look at a leader or a wealthy person as, we don't criticize them as much because, I know in the U.S., they sort of look up to them because I think in the back of everyone's minds, they go, maybe one day I can be like that person.
Have you read Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut?
Yes. And the movie, too.
I haven't seen the movie, but I love the book.
It's very weird.
He seems like but he seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
But
Kurt Vonnegut,
I mean, Slaughterhouse-Five is one of my favourite books, But he talks a bit about, in that book, about how in, like, European culture, that, like, we have these myths and traditions of, like, the noble poor and like the villainous rich. The most obvious one in this country is Robin Hood, but there's also like tons of this stuff in the Bible. You've got Jesus in the temple, like casting out the money lenders, and obviously
it's a badge of honor to be poor.
You've obviously got this, like, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into heaven. You've got all of these things, but then he talks about how in America, and obviously I'm not American, you are. You can speak for yourself. How America's like a newer culture, and like
very new,
it hasn't had time to develop these like mythologies of the poor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then in the absence of that, like you can have this idolization of wealth and power. You know what I mean? But it's it's dangerous. Like, it's obviously dangerous because, you know, if the weak idolize the rich and powerful, then who protects the weak from the rich and powerful?
Exactly.
Like, this is ultimately the question.
Exactly, because America gets a rap too as if I go, a lot of people from around the world, they go, if I go to America, I can build up and create my own fortune, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
But it's also, like you said, you want to protect everybody.
Yeah, but it was like relatively true for a period of time. You know, so I was born in 86 here in London. I grew up in like a very Asian area of London. So I grew up with lots of like first or second generation immigrants. You know, well, their parents would have been first generation immigrants. And, you know, they came over from, say, Pakistan or East Africa with like nothing. And they worked really hard and they got their heads down and they made money. And it was this kind of American dream, you know, here in the UK. And I'm sure loads of people have similar stories of people who, the parents of people who grew up in the sort of 80s, 90s, 2000s.
Raise yourself up.
Yeah, but it's I just don't think it's there anymore. I mean, of course, you know, people point at me and say, oh, you know, you grew up poor and you made money, and, you know, of course, you know, you can point at,
it's harder.
Lionel Messi, you know what I mean? You know, but like, I think it's become incredibly difficult. And, you know, people ask me, obviously because I'm like known as someone who's like rich and successful, you know, how do I do it? How do I make money? And honestly, I don't know what to tell them. Like, if they said to me, like, how do I learn Japanese? I would say, you know, buy this textbook, you know, how do I get, like, really hench? I would say, go to the gym, you know, and eat protein. But, like, I don't think there is a, like, you know, my friend's parents, they would open corner shops and they would work incredibly hard and they wouldn't spend much money. They would save up and they would buy assets. I don't think that works anymore.
No.
It doesn't work. So then, I think we're in this problematic space right now where, like, we still exist with this myth of meritocracy. This idea that if you work hard, if you get your head down, you'll get rich. But the reality of it is, and, you know, you probably will have seen this, like working in the arts, the people who succeed, increasingly, more and more, are just people with rich parents. Like, there's basically... And I went to LSE, which
Nepo.
is like... I went to LSE, which is like a very, very fancy university in central London. And you see people there who came in with really rich parents. And they weren't really seriously studying because they don't need to, right? Because they know that. And then when they graduate, their parents will, like, buy them, like, a business. Or, like, buy them, like, a prime shop front in the central London.
Happy graduation.
And then they'll be running this shop with no overheads, right? No business loan, no mortgage, no rent, because their dad bought it for them. And then they'll be making tons of money because they don't have any overheads. And then when you ask them, like, what do you do? They'll be like, oh, I'm a businessman. And this is the thing, we live in this kind of, like, simulation of a real economy where, you know, you go, I worked in Canary Wharf in East London. I'm from East London.
Nice.
And, you know, somebody came up to me once on the trading floor. I said, oh, that's an interesting accent. Where are you from? So, like, this is the thing. Like, there's no... when I was on this trading floor, like, I know drug dealers smarter than some of these guys.
Right.
So it's like, we live in this myth of, like, meritocracy. But the truth is, almost everybody who is making a lot of money is making a lot of money basically because their dad is rich. But they're pretending even to themselves. They often try to convince even themselves, no, I deserve this.
Well, that's also the whole thing about the people, you know, say immigrants that come over, they had all the drive and enthusiasm. Then the second generation, they're given everything, and they no longer have that same. But I was just thinking, like, some people don't even, I mean, a lot of people aspire to get super rich. But some people just aspire to, say, buy a house. And it used to be, you're not indebted to student loans, you graduate, you get a job, and then you can secure a mortgage. And that's just not even that's just a goal. And increasingly now, the only way that people realistically do that in a city like London, where housing is very expensive, is, you know, the deposit. Forget about it.
The deposit you're going to need is maybe £200,000.
And who has that?
Well, this is the thing. The people who have that are people with rich parents. You know, and you know. They're not. Sometimes their parents are remortgaging their own property to give the deposit to their kids, but, you know, that's, like, everything is inherited. Increasingly, like it's almost impossible now for a young person in London to buy a house without, like, a chunky gift of money from their parents. And what that means is housing is becoming an inherited asset. And what that means is, like, meritocracy is like basically over. Like, you know, I've got friends who are earning like 3 times national average income, still sleeping on their parents' sofa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't work anymore. Working doesn't work. The only thing that works is to be from a rich family. You know, and we're going back to this sort of kind of a new feudalism in a way, where it's a new inheritocracy.
And from speaking for the creative community, not like but there are always like when I was growing up or as a young man, you always go to places that are cheap, and that's where most of the creative people hang out.
Yeah.
And it's like it's shrinking now. Like in New York, there used to be livable places in New York City, and that's where disco was formed and rap and all these music. And same thing in Berlin, which I hear now is starting to become more. So there's no longer any places where you can just sort of
and then there's, you know, when you go to the cool places, it's only people who can afford to go to those places.
Yeah.
You know, and then they don't realize, you know, there's a whole world of people out there, you know, living in the suburbs of the city. You know, I grew up in Zone 4, which is like outer London, and now I live just outside of central London. And like people in the suburbs, they just don't come into the centre. Like maybe they come in for work and they go back out.
Yeah.
But you know, they very, very, very rarely will go out for a drink, you know, to a pub or a bar in central, or go out for a meal, because they don't have any disposable income. Yeah. And my sister works in the arts, and she's had loads of success, but like she struggles.
It's hard.
She struggles. Yeah. And with the rents have gone crazy. Like people, and you feel it. I think that expensiveness of living in London, it's like a fire underneath the city that just applies this boiling pressure to everyone. Everybody knows if I'm not making the money this month, I can't afford to live here.
I rented for a while, and it seems like the landlords charge, because they're limited to how much they can raise the rent every year, but they seem to raise it the maximum amount each year.
But, you know, you've got to realise, you know, you're competing with very rich people to live in these properties.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. And I think people, you know, when I say tax the rich, blah, 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 people often think like, oh, that's politics of envy, this kind of thing. They're competing with you for the resources that you need.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't tax them...
They're taking your resources.
And I want to make it clear, like, I am not fighting for redistribution. Yeah. In fact, I am the person in this argument fighting against redistribution.
You're not a communist.
The redistribution is happening. Redistribution is what is happening now. If you want redistribution, do nothing, because it's happening, and we will continue to see what we're seeing, which is like sort of London and other big Western cities slowly turning into what big cities look like in very unequal countries. So, you know, if you go to Mumbai or Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo or Mexico City, you know, the way those cities work is there's like a tiny, very wealthy area, you know, sometimes crazily wealthy. You know, there's this famous skyscraper in Mumbai, which is the residence of one guy.
Yeah.
All right. And you know, there's this super wealthy area.
Mr. Mumbai.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his name is. Maybe is it Ambani? I'm not sure. Anyway, there's this you know, and every super unequal city, you know, every big city in India or Latin America looks like this. You have like a center which is full of very, very wealthy people, right? You know, living in beautiful houses surrounded by barbed wire. And then basically the whole city is surrounded in slums, which is full of poverty and full of in many cases crime. But that is what a big unequal city looks like. A big unequal, of course it does. What big unequal city means is all of the wealth is owned by 1% of the people. So then you have, you know, a tiny elite centre. They have their personal security, and then the city is full of poverty.
Now, what do we do?
It has to be taxed. It has to be taxed.
So we have to get on our politicians.
Yes, but I think you also need an understanding. I think the first step is we need as many people as possible in this country, in America, in the West, all across the world really, to understand the reason that their living standards are falling is because of growing wealth inequality. And if we don't do anything about that, that will continue and that will worsen. So living standards will worsen. The only way to stop living standards from falling is to stop wealth inequality from rising. And the only way to do that is to significantly raise taxes on the very rich. And it's important that you understand that, because obviously when somebody like me builds a campaign saying you need to tax the super rich, you need to tax like the 1%, you know what I mean? Obviously, a lot of very rich people are going to attack me.
Right.
And they're going to sow a lot of confusion. They're going to sow a lot of dissent. And they're going to say, oh, you know, don't worry about that. So it's important that the understanding is there.
He's crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy. Or he's a liar. It's a popular one. Gary Stevenson is a liar. Have you seen his clothes? What a joke. He's got a fake kitchen. These kinds of things.
A fake kitchen?
You've not heard about the fake kitchen rumours?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people think I've got a fake kitchen.
How dare you?
Yeah. And somebody said on YouTube, they said, you can tell his kitchen is fake because look how clean his sponge is. That's what he said, which I think probably says more about him.
He happens to have clean sponges, people.
Everyone changes the sponge sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then it's clean for a period of time.
Yeah, and then it gets dirty, and then you replace
it again. Yeah. Lots of rumours, big rumours. Gary uses loads of cocaine. It's a popular rumour. I don't know why. Yeah.
Are there examples in history where this has worked, where it's been reversed?
Yeah. I mean, yes, like you have this one really like striking example. There's only one time in recent history where inequality really decreases, which is the aftermath of World War II. And, you know, really, to be honest, it's hard for me to look at what's happening now and not be reminded of what happened in the beginning of the 20th century, in the beginning of the 1900s, which you have this economy which grows quickly and suddenly becomes much more unequal, and you have this rapid concentration of wealth, and you have this economic crisis and these falling living standards, and then that leads to, you know, popular discontent, and, you know, people turn and demand of the politicians do something different, and the politicians offer like basically fascism. You know, I'm not saying we're in fascism yet, but like it's pretty clear the direction in which we are going. But then
also you blame other people.
Yeah, I mean that's, you know,
like
and this was exactly this was, you know, anyone who knows the history knows that we had this, you know, whether you like it or not, you know, that first half of the 20th century, there was massive growth in the blaming of foreigners, the blaming of immigrants, you know, most obviously the blaming of Jews in Germany, you know, this blaming of foreign groups, that's, you know, that's happening now. And that led to what it led to. But then, when we come out of World War II, suddenly, and, you know, I think it's interesting to discuss maybe how this happened, we come back from World War II, and all of these men come home from the war, and all of a sudden, you know, across Europe, across the Western world, I mean, the US was a little bit ahead because it had already started doing these things under FDR.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah,
and
FDR. Yeah, it had already started doing some of these things. But then you suddenly start seeing in Europe, no, we're not going to accept this level of inequality. And what we're going to do is we're going to tax the very rich at much higher levels. So you have the introduction of these much higher rates of tax on the very rich. And we're going to use that money to provide ordinary people with good quality healthcare and education and housing, and we're going to make sure everybody has enough food, and we're going to make sure everybody has financial security.
It was like a clean slate.
Yeah, and you know, lots of things happen to lead to that, and you know, obviously, a lot of pretty fucking terrible things happen to lead to that, and I don't want to see a repeat of those things happening again. But you know, the thing which inspires me the most about that story is, you know, we're sitting here today. You know, of course, you know, this is before our lifetimes, but those of us who are able to understand a bit of history can go and look back, and we can see, you know, I often tell the story of how my grandma was born 100 years ago in London, you know, richest city in the richest country in the world at that time, and 3 of her siblings died of tuberculosis, which is a disease of poverty, you know, in the middle of this phenomenal wealth, right? And we can see that in the course of her lifetime, we went from being this kind of country, which is incredibly rich, but the people are incredibly poor, to being the kind of country that we had after World War II, where somebody like my dad, who worked for the post office for 20 grand a year for 35 years, can get a house and have 3 kids and send all 3 kids to university and have a pension and have financial security and have free healthcare and have retirement and go on a holiday every now and again, you know. So what is most amazing...
in the US, yeah.
But we can see that they did it, and yet people will turn around to somebody like me and say, oh, it's impossible to tax the rich. And some people will believe them. But what is most inspirational about what they did then in the 20th century? They did that with no historical precedent. Like, you and I can look back and say, of course inequality can be reduced. Of course ordinary people can have a good standard of living, because we did it, you know, 100 years ago.
People
we did it 80 years ago.
Reminded.
Yeah, but yet somehow, and I think it is genuinely inspirational, like that generation of people, they had known nothing but poverty for thousands of years. There had never been a society that says, okay, healthcare for everyone, education for everyone, food and housing for everyone.
You had to think differently.
And And, you know, in the aftermath of war, you know, this terrible thing, with no historical precedent of it happening, they somehow built that thing. So I think when people turn around and say it's impossible, I think, you know, did your granddad say it was impossible?
Right.
You know, did your great-granddad say it was impossible? Look at what they built. Look at what they built with no historical example of it ever being done. Yes, you know, I would love to know a bit more about what led to that.
Yeah, because there's loads of things to unpack there. But like in World War II in the U.S., it's a lot of what they did was, you know, they had a GI Bill where people could go back to school and they'd get money for school, so they wouldn't be in debt when they go out of school. And also the Marshall Plan they did, which wasn't punishing countries, but helping them to re-energize their economies.
You know what I wonder? I wonder whether the experience of World War II, right? So World War II is like the fucking war to end all wars, whatever, right? It's like basically you convert your entire...
It was a biggie.
Yeah, it was a big one. And like basically the entire economies of like every major country in at least Europe, you know, much of the world, devote their entire economy to killing each other. Right, so you know, I don't know the numbers, but you know, 85% of the economy is we're going to blow the shit out of everything. We're going to kill everyone, right? Like that's what everyone's doing. The whole economy is, and obviously, if you don't have some good economic management there, that's going to lead to a collapse in standard of living, right? But actually, they come in with this aggressive state management, and they say, you know what? We're going to make sure that everybody has food. We're going to make sure that the schools keep running. We're going to provide. We're going to make sure the basics are provided. And I wonder whether this experience of World War II made people realise that, wait a minute, if we can all have food and housing and education and healthcare in the context of 85% of our economy being devoted to blowing everything up and killing each other, maybe when we stop killing each other, we can still have those things. I wonder whether so much of this fight, this political fight which I'm involved in, is about the art of the possible. And it's just about making people realise that you don't have to be poor. You don't have to be poor. So I always remember, like my first ever bonus when I was 23 at Citibank, and I've been led to believe it was going to be £120,000, and I actually got given just under £400,000. And I remember
more.
Yeah, that's what this was like fucking more than 15 years ago, right? And I remember like sitting on the grass outside when I got that money, and when I was at uni. I used to eat for lunch every day 2 Scotch eggs. You know what Scotch egg is? You seem like a Scotch egg man. Yeah.
They're not bad.
Yeah. 2 Scotch eggs for 75p every day for lunch. And then, because it was the cheapest thing, and that was like what I could afford. And then suddenly you get given like £400,000 when you're 23 years old. And you just suddenly realise this thing, which is like...
350,000 Scotch eggs.
Yeah, this is the thing. You realise, like, it would be more than that, actually. But you realise, like... This poverty it doesn't need to exist. We put people into poverty so we can create this tiny elite class of super rich people who, by the way, are mostly fucking miserable, if I'm totally honest, from my interactions with them. Like, we don't need to do it.
And hunger, too, right?
It's not, listen, look, I'm not saying that it's easy to create like an economic Valhalla and it's, the life that my dad lived. It wasn't easy.
The solution
and it wasn't perfect.
There,
I'm not saying perfection is there.
Yeah.
But, if you look at the change in living standards in 20 years between the 1930s and the 1950s, which, by the way, is 20 years which we largely spent blowing the shit out of everything, blowing the country up and killing each other.
Don't sugarcoat it.
It's possible. It's possible.
No,
it's possible.
right.
And this is the thing. I think this... And I don't accept anyone that tells you it's not possible.
No,
because those people who are telling you it's not possible, almost always, they are either rich or paid by the rich. And really what they're saying is, fuck off, that's mine.
They have a vested interest
of course they are.
What they
when
have.
I go on the news, before, now I don't do it too much. Obviously, I made an exception for you, Rich. When I go on the news before, it's always me doing it for free against some guy who works for some think tank funded by some billionaire. You know what I mean? They own the newspapers. Of course they're going to tell you. When I was writing my book, I was reading Hard Times by Charles Dickens. And it's written in the 1800s. And there's a bit where he's talking about, the government's trying to tax the factory owners, the new rich. And this factory owner's like, if they tax us, we're going to throw our factories into the sea. They're always, of course they're going to tell you, if you try and tax us, it's going to be a disaster for you. But we did it. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But we did do it, and we can do it again.
Sorry to interrupt again, but another way to support the show is through buying some merch. This way you get a thing and you can give it to somebody or you can hit yourself with it. Someone tried to throw this mug at me and it broke this, but don't do that. Yeah, you get mugs, Rich Fulcher's TalkBox coasters, hoodies, T-shirts, you name it. And it's all in my profile. So please, just another way to support the podcast. Thank you. Back to the show. Okay, we've talked about taxing the wealthy, but is there any other thing, like something that we haven't even thought of that could be a game changer in terms of, like, I just saw Rachel Reeves say the other day, like, we need to invest in 4 major industries in Britain. Shipbuilding.
Chip building. Not shipbuilding.
Yeah.
Ship or chip is an important distinction.
She said
like boats.
Shipbuilding.
Boats.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said AI.
Okay.
What else? Energy and something else.
Okay.
But is there something that would...
Listen, obviously, I'm not going to tell you, like, there's no other way. You know, maybe some economist has some great, fantastic idea.
Or in addition to...
If you look back, you know, obviously some people think AI is going to totally revolutionize the world and make the world like an amazing, like, Valhalla. If you go back and look at the Industrial Revolution, which of course happened here in this country primarily, or at least first.
You guys started it.
Yeah, we started it. Great idea we had. It enormously increases economic productivity, economic efficiency. What does it do for ordinary living standards? You know, for at least the first 40, 50, 60 years, it sends people who are living, you know, obviously lives of poverty in the countryside, into being rammed into these unbelievably crowded, polluted cities, working in these unbelievably crowded, polluted, unsafe factories. You know, I used to live...
Houses.
Yeah, exactly. I used to live in Bow. There's an old matchstick factory, and people couldn't work there for long because if you worked there for too long, your jaw would disappear because of the chemicals they're working with on the matches. You know, and that's, you know, it creates this hellish life, you know, and of course it increases living standards, but when do those living standards filter down to the poor? Well, my grandma is born in 1927. You know, this is like 100 years after the start of the Industrial Revolution, and yet 3 of her siblings are dying of tuberculosis in the richest city in the country. So really, it doesn't really benefit ordinary people until after World War II, when we fucking start taxing the rich people.
Right.
So to be honest,
so it starts and ends with that.
Yeah, look, I'm not against growth. I'm not against productivity. You know, I'm not even against AI. You know, I'm not an expert on AI. If it's as good as people say it is, it could improve living standards. But history shows us it can create a heaven or a hell depending on whether we manage the fucking distribution.
There's not a good track
you know, and
record.
then the tech bros will say, "Oh, don't worry about AI, because we're going to do a universal basic income. So we're going to improve the economy and we're going to give a ton of money out." Okay. Well, if you don't pay your fucking taxes, where do we get the fucking money from?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, all of this, really, the whole thing comes down to tax. AI will destroy society if we don't fix tax.
Yeah.
You know, it's as simple as that. You know,
it doesn't matter what the technology is.
No, listen, technology will always change the world. Technology will always change the world. But, I mean, look, you know, to be honest, we could have eliminated poverty when we fucking developed agriculture. You know what I mean? But most of the time, what it leads to, if you don't manage, all of history shows you this. If we do not manage it, societies tend towards extreme inequality. Yeah. And extreme inequality is great for the fucking rich, the tiny percentage of people who are rich, and it's shit for the rest of us.
That's the default.
Yeah, I mean, look, and, you know, find me one extremely unequal society in the history of the world which has not delivered shit living standards and unaffordable housing. Yeah.
Rome? No. Ancient Rome?
I wasn't around, but I don't think it was great for the slaves. Yeah.
Damn it! You're right. Yeah. Wow. Now to talk about anything else would be kind of...
You want to talk about the Mighty Boosh?
No. Well, I did write a couple of other questions, like, the high streets.
Okay.
This is what I don't get. They're disappearing, aren't they? And then it seems like any time a shop closes down, which sometimes you can tell this shop isn't going to make it.
Yeah.
It's just selling fermented wine and making candles out of it. This isn't going to last. but then it's replaced by a barber shop. And there's 50 barber shops on the high street.
Yeah, I mean, it depends where you are. So I grew up in a place called Ilford, which is a little bit of the armpit of London. And nobody will complain because everybody from Ilford will agree with that. And it's a great place. But, you go to the high street and, it is, gambling shops, fried chicken shops, tons of... Once there was 4 fried chicken shops next to each other, all named after different states.
Yes.
Of
Tennessee
the US.
fried chicken.
Yeah, like random ones.
Rhode Island fried chicken.
These kinds of things. Even states that are not famous for fried chicken.
So why is that? It's like, it seems like...
because fried chicken's fucking cheap.
And coffee shops are cheap.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends where you are. In poorer places, there's not that many coffee shops. And I think it's important to recognise that, as society becomes more and more unequal, like your experience of where you live may be quite different. So, to where somebody else lives. So, if you go to central London, the high streets are not dying. You know what I mean? In fact, if you go to fucking Kensington and Chelsea, the high streets are fucking booming. You know what I mean? It's if you go to the poorer cities of the country, or smaller towns, or the kind of suburbs where I live, then they're getting turned into shit, really. But it's because people don't have money. It's as simple as that.
That's the bottom line.
When inequality increases, then who has money centralizes, and then and then it's if you want to know what the future of London is, go to Mumbai, go to Sao Paulo, go to Mexico City, because those are what big, very unequal cities look like.
Right.
Have you been to Mumbai?
No.
I went to Mumbai and I stayed in a luxury hotel because I'm a wanker. And, I came out and...
In a tuxedo.
Yeah, obviously, as you do. And there was a whole family just lying almost naked, on the streets on cardboard boxes, unpacked cardboard boxes outside the luxury hotel, which I'll be totally honest, I'm not an expert, they looked like they were dying. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what extreme inequality looks like. And don't kid yourself. I always remember do you remember when Trump used this term shithole countries?
Yes.
And I think that term is really important because beneath that term shithole countries is this kind of lazy racism, which basically believes the kind of poverty which is increasingly normal in places like India, in much of Latin America, in much of Africa, it couldn't happen here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But read your fucking Dickens. You know what I mean? My grandparents grew up in that kind of poverty. In this country. It can happen here. It has happened here before. And that is the direction we are going. Don't think that's the only thing that happens in black and brown countries. And I think when Trump says shithole countries, that's what he's trying to say to you. He's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that extreme inequality over there. That's never going to happen here. Things are going to be fine over here.
Yeah.
But this is the direction we're going in. And don't think that, we in the West are inherently better than that. Look at our history. Look at the inequality in our history. We achieved one thing, that improved living standards, and we are giving that up.
I've got to start drinking.
Yeah. Sorry, I always get very depressing.
Now, I've got some other questions here, but they might be moot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is worse?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's two evils.
Yeah.
Deficit spending by the government or austerity.
Oh, listen, I prefer deficit spending than austerity, but it's not a long-term solution. It's not a long-term solution. Listen, if I'm totally honest, I think sort of the left, broadly, internationally, has been quite naive on the dangers of long-term deficit spending. I think the best example is COVID. We got through that by basically massive amounts of deficit spending.
Yes.
If you can fix a problem with deficit spending, what that means is your problem was a problem of distribution. Because it means all we need to do is get the assets from the rich. Because deficit spending is we borrow the things we need from the rich.
But then it needs to be paid back.
With interest. If you keep doing it again and again and again, you end up in this situation where we are now, where the rich say, we're not going to lend to you anymore. And over that period of time, you run your wealth down. So, if you look at wealth owned by the UK government, in the 80s, it's plus 100% of GDP. So the government owns as much wealth as the entire national product in 1 year. And then in 40 years, that goes to where it is now, which is less than negative 100% of GDP. So you give that wealth away. And I'm not, of course, I would rather have deficit spending than austerity. And in the very short term, when COVID happens, we need money quickly.
Yeah.
And you don't have time to build the tax system, then deficits are like a short-term solution. But the problem we have now, which is crazy, is right, the UK government and most Western governments are massively in debt. To who? The fucking rich. And we can't tax them because we have not built the infrastructure needed to tax them. And when I turn around and say, let's build that infrastructure, they say, oh, fuck, it's impossible. You know, it's incredibly naive and irresponsible, really. And I think we desperately need, at the very least, surely everybody should agree, we should know who owns what, which we don't. We should know what the wealth distribution is, which we don't. And we should have the option to tax the richest people in the world who own all of the assets that we need if we want to. And at the moment, we don't have that. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. And if you agree, then help me build it. Gary's Economics.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, listen, this has been very informative. I'm going to get lots of comments, which I'll have to forward to you.
No worries. Hope you enjoyed it.
We do have a segment in our show.
Yes.
It's a bit frivolous now after that
That's
heavy
all right.
discussion.
I expected some frivolity from yourself.
It's called Fill in the Blank.
Okay.
So I'll ask you a question.
Yep.
You have to fill in the blank.
Okay.
And don't worry about being funny or anything.
Okay, I never do. Yeah, all right.
Can I quote you on that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 1. The fastest I've ever driven a car is blank.
I did drive. Am I like, will I get arrested if I admit to speeding?
No, there's no
Okay,
evidence.
let's just say I'm not promising this is true, but I first had a little Peugeot 106 I bought for £710, and I think I did get it above 100 at one point.
Really?
Which I don't think that's responsible, and it was like fucking vibrating to shit. And I was very young. I wouldn't do it.
It was in 100 miles.
I wouldn't do it again, but well, there were no. Let's just say it was in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're safe. You're safe.
Yeah.
Come on in. No. 2. Blank is always around when I least expect it.
Ooh, the fucking Financial Times. The fucking Daily Mail. I don't know, they've been absolutely sniffing around my ass for fucking... They emailed my old... one of these guys emailed my old university fucking supervisor. Did Gary really graduate from Oxford? Fucking wankers. as if I would just like... I'd been making up all this time and nobody...
People have done that, though.
Oh, pretended to have graduated from Oxford. Yeah. But I mean, if you look like me, you're unlikely to get away with that as a lie. Yeah.
So they're always sniffing around.
Oh, it's always wankers sniffing around. Yeah, it's fucking bullshit. Yeah. But it's funny. Yeah.
3. Only a blank would truly ruin my week.
Ooh.
Could be more than one thing.
Ooh, really terrible case of indigestion?
Would ruin your week. Same here.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah, that's what happens if you go gym...
Eating.
After eating, yeah.
After eating.
You've been doing that all this time?
Well, I mean, I don't go to the gym that much, but I do sometimes eat, but I should not. I should not. I've learned a lot. Anytime I watch blank, I can't take my eyes off it.
Mighty Boosh.
Yes, that's the right answer.
That was you.
Yeah.
Did you do that a lot? Yeah.
5. Blank is the most expensive thing I've ever seen up close.
Ooh.
So
What's
it
the most
doesn't mean
expensive
you've
thing
owned
I've ever
it.
seen up close? I must have seen something really expensive. I haven't seen the Mona Lisa or anything like that.
Oh, that would be up there, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Up close. Fucking hell. I must have seen some really fucking expensive. It's not really my vibe, to be honest.
But I mean, you might have come up across it and not even known how much it's...
I did go on a trip to the Bank of England when I was a kid, and there's you can put your hand in and lift a gold bar like that. You ever done that?
No. It's heavy, isn't it?
Heavy, yeah. Probably worth millions nowadays.
Well, thank you, Gary. This is the time where you can plug anything you want.
I mean, I probably should plug. I didn't come here as
see.
part of the publicity for my upcoming documentary, but I've got an upcoming documentary coming out with Channel 4. It's called How to Get Filthy Rich with Gary Stevenson, which the title I absolutely hate and didn't choose.
Nice.
But the documentary is really good.
How long is it?
90 minutes, including ad breaks. Yeah, because Channel 4, so it's got ad breaks, unfortunately.
When does it come up?
I think it's maybe 8th of July.
I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, it's showing at Sheffield Doc Fest. Yeah, I don't like the title, but I did work really hard on it, and the team I worked on, really good team. And I've watched it, and I do think it's really good. So
you produced it?
I'm the presenter,
Yeah.
and the interviewer. Yeah, I'm interviewing lots of people. And I was involved in writing it as well. And of course, also the book, The Trading Game. But more importantly, like Gary's Economics.
Gary's Economics.
YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, which is basically like the heart of this political project, which I use to lobby politicians. And like it's really getting somewhere. Like we really have impact nowadays. So yeah, documentaries coming out soon. The book I'm really, really proud of, if you like. The book is more like, it's almost like a novel, like a kind of like a film. It's great. You should read it. I don't
Which
feel like
will
books.
be made into a film,
It's
probably.
it's in process. It's
Who would you
long.
like to see play yourself?
Brad Pitt.
Yes. Yes.
Brad Pitt. Has to be Brad Pitt. He's probably a bit old now, but we can do stuff digitally now.
Yeah.
I'd love to do stuff digitally to Brad Pitt, wouldn't you?
CGI, of course I would.
Yeah, but also, yeah, I mean, I've got loads of videos online.
Please
Help
watch
us.
all of Gary's stuff.
Yeah, Tax Wealth Network.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, huh? Yeah, so if you have any ideas for other kinds of guests, please let us know because we're open to anything here except restaurateurs. I don't know why I said that. We like them. So listen, if you want to support us independently, we've got Patreon. It's just me and Kenny. So please become a member and you can get some perks like watching the episodes early and maybe some little snippets from the show that we don't often air. And if you'd like some merch, this one, I broke this. It's pretty good merch. Don't worry about that. Somebody threw it at me. But it's great. Check it in my profile for Rich Fulcher's TalkBox merch. Okay, that's it. Bye. Rich Fulcher's TalkBox.